The Connect Show is made possible in part by the Information Technologies program at UCSD's Division of Extended Studies and Public Programs.
Connect is the program in technology and entrepreneurship at the University of California, San Diego. Connect links high-tech entrepreneurs with the financial, managerial, and technical resources they need for success. Investors, scientists, lawyers, accountants, government officials, and other service providers all come together with Connect to create high-tech companies in California. And now, Barbara Bree.
Good evening. Welcome to this special edition of the Connect Show. I'm Barbara Bree. We come to you tonight from Robinson Auditorium at UCSD. We're here to talk about the future of the software industry as part of Career Night, presented by UCSD Extended Studies and Public Programs. We have a live audience with us, ready to hear about the latest developments and hottest trends in one of the fastest growing industries in this country. Here to project into the future are some of the leaders in software. Please welcome Mark Fackler, the President and CEO of Stellcom Technologies, Bill Proffer, the Director of the Information Management Laboratory at SAIC, Jay Wright is the President and CEO of Wright Strategies, Tom Inslee is a Managing Partner at Price Waterhouse, and Harvey Stern is the Director of Information Technologies at UCSD's Division of Extended Studies and Public Programs. Welcome, all of you. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thanks. Tom, let me start with you. How large is the software industry in the United States?
Barbara, that's an elusive number based on the nature of the industry in and of itself. The Price Waterhouse, in concert with the Software Publishers Association, the Information Technology Association of America, and the Massachusetts Software Council, conducts an annual software survey. We sent out in 1997 over 15,000 surveys. Based on the results that we received, we believe that the average size of software companies across the country is about 45 employees. If you extrapolate that number, you get about 675,000. I believe the number is actually quite a bit larger than that.
Great. Mark, where does San Diego fit into this picture?
Well, San Diego is a very vibrant and powerful software community. San Diego's biggest problem is no one believes that it is, especially the people outside of San Diego. Communities like the Bay Area and Boston are doing much, much better from a publicity point of view, and San Diego is still sort of considered a second-tier type technology community in the outside, but it is truly one of the best software communities around.
Would you say we have a few hundred software companies in San Diego, 1,000 software companies?
Well, just like Tom, that's a very hard thing to quantify because there's so many software companies that are in garages. There's, from the numbers that I hear, at least 15,000 employees, and extrapolating back on 45 per company, and there's 1,000 or so companies out there that are all creating software for the industry.
Harvey, how should we think about the software industry in terms of segments?
Well, we look at it very broadly. Basically, anyone who uses software to run their company or embed in their product or as an operating system, those groups basically cover anyone who is doing software.
Bill, you're at SAIC, which is Science Applications International Corporation, and you're probably one of the largest software companies in San Diego, but I can't go to CompUSA and buy anything that SAIC makes. What does SAIC do?
It's a good question, Barbara.
What doesn't it do?
SAIC is a very quiet, large company. We have about 4,000 people employed here in San Diego and about 26,000 worldwide now. SAIC provides services in the way of people. We can broadly be described as a system integrator. And we have a lot of software professionals. Probably a good percentage of our staff here in San Diego can be described as writing software, working in the software industry.
What would be some of the kinds of projects that SAIC would do?
Well, it's a broad spectrum. SAIC traditionally has been a defense contractor. We have broadly gone out into the healthcare marketplace, the commercial marketplace, and other areas now. Mostly large-scale integration projects for government organizations or commercial organizations, from the gamut of writing software to developing specifications to developing electronic commerce items.
Well, Jay, you're at the opposite end of the spectrum. You're a relatively new software company in San Diego. Tell us, what does Right Strategies do? How many employees do you have?
Less than 26,000. I think at last count we had 33. We've been around for about 3.5 years, and the company was basically founded to develop field force automation software that utilized a new breed of handheld computer. And that handheld computer is available off the shelf. It's low cost and has a new level of price performance we haven't seen before. Characterized by new Windows CE devices that we've seen, the Newton message pad devices, and the Palm Pilot devices. So we believe this device with our application provides a viable alternative for the mobile field worker that's using a clipboard and paper today and needs to interface with some existing business system that they've got at in their company.
Mark, how does Stellcom fit into the San Diego software industry?
Well, I'd like to say right in between these two companies, but not quite. We're very similar to SAIC. In fact, they are a customer of ours. We're a professional, high-technology service organization, and we service companies just like Right Strategies and like SAIC.
Well, let's spend a minute talking about the structure of the software industry. I mean, we've all heard of Microsoft. It's giant. Tom, are there lots of companies like Microsoft, or is there one Microsoft and then lots of smaller ones?
Barbara, there are less than, well, there are 6 companies that have, 6 software companies that have revenues over $1 billion. The rest of the software industry is comprised primarily of companies in the size of $5 million to, say, $50 or $60 million in revenues. So the bulk of the industry is relatively small companies that are looking to grow through a variety of means, product development, mergers, going public, and using those funds to expand their existing products. So the smaller companies are the norm in the software industry.
Mark, who are some of the major players in the software industry here in San Diego?
Well, of course, SAIC, and of course I'd like to say Stellcom Technologies. But the companies that do the software run the gamut from the defense industries like TRW and Teledyne Ryan, to the product development companies like Right Strategies, to just an entrepreneur who's developing a real estate program trying to help one office or 2 offices with a desire to become a Microsoft in the long term. But it's a wide variety, because it's a tremendously entrepreneurial type industry.
Mark, are we doing anything with educational software in San Diego?
There are some educational software companies. There's a lot of CD-ROM manufacturers here in San Diego. There's a lot of web development here in San Diego. And of course, the embedded systems and the telecommunication systems are just huge here in San Diego also. Are
there any well-known consumer products that are coming out of San Diego software companies? I can think of Eudora by Qualcomm.
Absolutely. Eudora is one of the widest spread email packages around.
TurboTax, which is now owned by Intuit but was developed here, would be another. Are there any others that people might know of?
There's a very quiet secret here in that Sony develops a lot of the PlayStation software here in San Diego.
So that's something probably most of us have in our homes,
right,
that our kids are using all the time.
Yes.
Griffin has some commercially available more software that's off the shelf.
So we do have some shrink wrap software coming out of San Diego.
One of the things that's happening is as those companies become successful, they are getting gobbled up by those billion-dollar organizations, and so they create an organization, they develop software, and then they're gone. And unfortunately for San Diego, sometimes that development leaves San Diego also.
I think one of the reasons for that is because many of the software companies that are developing products develop one main product. And the step into the second product, or even the second stage of their initial product, is a very difficult step to make. And many companies find it easier to sell themselves or to merge with another company and let the other company help them finance expansion into some other areas.
Well, I guess this has issues for people in the workforce in a software company, in terms of you may work for a company for a few years and then it gets bought up and then you may need to go find a job at another company.
That's an issue that probably keeps many software folks from coming to San Diego, and I wouldn't say rightfully so. There's a job fair that's going to be taking place in San Jose in the next few weeks, as I believe, that will showcase 20 plus San Diego-based software companies with a view towards encouraging software engineers, programmers to look to San Diego, not only as a means for their next job, but possibly as a source of the second and third generation jobs if their position in that initial company doesn't work out.
Mark, as a leader in the software industry here, what are some of the major issues confronting the industry right now?
Well, unquestionably, the available engineers is the biggest problem right now. And it's twofold. It can be solved in two different ways. One, the educational system needs to produce more and more engineers. We need to excite the kids in high school and in college that engineering is a great profession to be in. And the other thing we need to do is convince the nation that as companies come and go, as they should, the natural progression of an economy, it's okay that you're laid off because there's so much opportunity here in San Diego, they can go out and find another job.
One of our survey questions, Barbara, is to ask the CEOs of software companies what their primary concerns are. The primary concern for 1997 was the same as 1996, and that's to maintain customer satisfaction. But a rapidly rising second concern, which was fifth or sixth in 1996, is the ability to hire qualified employees. It's a big issue with software companies.
And I don't think it's just about publicizing all the jobs here. I think people go somewhere and get a job in this industry because they're passionate about a particular company. I think what's going to make more people come down to San Diego is some more big hits. And we have to have some big successes. I mean, we've had Qualcomm, we've had HNC and some other ones that people are familiar with, but we need a few more. I mean, that's the kind of excitement that'll bring people down. I want to go down there and work for one of those companies. And then they show up and we have our labor pool.
It's a serious problem right now. Let me put it in an SAIC perspective. And we haven't gobbled anybody this week, Mark. SAIC has 2,000 honest-to-goodness open jobs right now. These are not internal hires or internal transfers or whatnot. Those are 2,000 external positions that are unfilled right now. There are 160 positions, in looking at our webpage this morning, in San Diego, of which 140 of those have the word software in them, or software manager or something like that. Now that 2,000 people represents 2,000 people times 40 hours a week plus unbilled time that we can't bill for. So you can do the numbers and figure out what loss of revenue that represents for our company right now.
Jay, what's the major issue confronting Right Strategies?
Personnel. It's the same one. We're probably looking for a little different profile than SAIC is. I mean, being a small company, we can only hire the best people that are out there. We need stars. We don't have room for anything else to move forward. Not that SAIC doesn't come I think that may have come out.
We'll take this outside, Jay.
Well, what do
They're looking for different things. An opportunity with our company is a much higher risk thing.
Yes,
we're in a startup. We're in a startup world. We give more stock options than we do cash, and they're coming there because they're passionate about what we're doing. They believe in it, and they think they can make a lot of money. There's risk and there's upside. We always talk about that in our company. You're here because we believe this is going to go, and our belief and faith in what we're doing exceeds the amount of risk that we're incurring to be there. It's
a very good point, Jay. The difference between a small startup company and a large company, SAIC is non-traditional in the sense that it's very entrepreneurial and it's very much a virtual corporation. It's not like a traditional manufacturing firm where you could look for a career path, basically. You can have a career path there, but it's much different. But a person looking for work is going to think very carefully about coming to San Diego to work for a startup.
Absolutely.
Moving his family or moving himself here with probably little relocation support. He has to be looking at San Diego as an opportunity to move on if something happens to that company, for instance.
Absolutely. It's a huge problem, especially with the senior management positions. I mean, that's really hard to bring people in, and it's something that right out of the gate companies face here. I mean, after they get venture capitals putting that team together, we had to import a good portion of ours.
If that's an issue, getting the qualified people in San Diego, is there a way that companies in San Diego, software companies in San Diego, could offer employment via telecommuting. I know that that's becoming much more fashionable. Does that work for companies the size of Right Strategies, SAIC?
Well, this recalls a conversation I had about a year ago with some people at First Virtual. If you're not familiar with First Virtual, that was a startup here in San Diego, basically doing electronic commerce on the internet. And they had a virtual corporation. They were scattered around the United States. And at some point they decided to basically have an office building in Del Mar and bring their people together because they discovered a very sad thing about having a virtual corporation. You're working all the time. If you can be contacted via pager or cell phone or whatnot, you have a 24-hour day job. If you go into the office, you have an excuse to go home at night.
You kind of have the best of both worlds
Yes.
there, you know, the pager and come to work.
One of the tough parts about the telecommuting and the software industry itself is creating software is like creating a picture. And it's like having a painter in one house painting part of a portrait and a painter in another house painting another part of a portrait, and then when you pull them together the hues and the colors don't quite match. And the same thing happens with software. The requirement for the people to interact with each other is so great, it makes telecommuting tough to do in the software industry.
Yeah, to further that analogy, sometimes the model changes position a little bit too. It
Absolutely.
makes it difficult. We couldn't make that work, telecommuting the size we are. They've got to be together just because of that very fact.
I think it works great here in San Diego. The concept of being able to stay home certain days of the week is wonderful, being able to work at home, but you still need to come into an office, and doing that remotely becomes difficult.
Mark, what do you think we need to do as a region to move the software industry here to the first tier?
I believe the most important thing to do is for the businesses to get together, as they've been doing in organizations like UCSD Connect and the Software Industry Council, and cooperatively go to San Jose and go to Boston and go to Austin and create a presence there, and to start an advertising campaign or a publicity campaign that shows that it's okay if you're a senior manager and you come to San Diego and you get a job with a lot of stock options, not a lot of money, and work real hard and the company goes out, that you can get that other job. And it's a matter of publicity that we really need to do. And of course, we need to pump more engineers out of the university system here.
And we need more classes like we're doing at UCSD.
Absolutely.
Extension to prepare existing engineers for new kinds of positions.
Or even cross-train in other people who want to get into the industry with the extension classes.
The city is extremely low on publicity for this whole thing too.
You can be critical.
Yeah. Not a problem.
Well, Tom, availability of capital is an issue for new technology companies and new software companies. What does the capital picture look like for San Diego software companies?
Well, the capital is there. Through the first 6 months of 1997, venture capitalists invested $5.5 billion into companies in the United States. Of that $5.5 billion, $1.5 billion went into software companies. That's across the country. In San Diego, the venture capitalists invested $162 million into a variety of companies in the first 6 months of 1997. Of that, $47 million went into software companies. Now, that's the good news. The bad news is that it was only 5 companies.
So 5 companies got that $47 million.
That's right. And if you look at, compare San Diego to the Silicon Valley, for example, Silicon Valley had 173 deals that were closed in the first half of 1997, as compared to 5 in San Diego. That's a fairly substantial difference.
So we're not getting our fair share in San Diego.
We're not getting our fair share. Not at all. Not at all.
We have a lot less early stage deals though, right? I mean, those ones that happen were later stage, second and third round.
That's right.
Large sums. Most of them that happen in the Valley are earlier stage.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
There's a more, I guess there's a greater number of early stage companies in the Valley. The ones that were funded in San Diego, not only for the first half of 1997, but also for all of 1996, tended to be follow-on financings.
Yeah.
That's right.
So for the early stage software company, it's exceedingly difficult to find capital if you're in San Diego.
It's very tough to get attention from the venture capitalists. That's right. One of the ways that, that software companies can accomplish that is by talking to their service advisors, by talking with other software companies, through Connect. Connect has several vehicles that entrepreneurs can use to become acquainted with various venture capitalists.
But this is something the region needs to focus
Absolutely.
on increasing the availability of this early stage capital.
That's right. The money's there. The question is, how do you get it into San Diego?
Yeah, I don't know if it's that it's extremely hard to get it if you're early stage here. I think, you know, I've talked to more than my fair share of these people here and in the Bay Area, and you know, everybody would like to get money down into San Diego, and they're looking at deals. I think some of it's got to do with the quality of the deals that they see here too. I mean, we need to have exciting ideas and exciting management teams ready to execute on this stuff before they're going to cough up the cash.
Jay, where did your early stage money come from?
Well, credit cards initially. And then friends and family who had faith, and then we did a private round through an investment banking boutique kind of firm in town, and then after that a corporate partner.
And how long did this all take you to do?
Well, the credit cards were instant. I just cash advances for legal bills, whatever. Beyond that, the you know, the larger transactions actually probably took about the same amount of time as the smaller ones, but those have been equally staged over the past 3 years, or 3.5 years.
You know, I might hazard a guess that one reason that the venture capitalists don't invest as much in San Diego as they do in Silicon Valley is that many entrepreneurs are hesitant to give up an ownership percentage in their company. They would rather keep the company small than they would give up what they perceive to be control over their company. And in the Silicon Valley, you don't have that mindset. The mindset is to get as much venture capital money as you can, because that's the first step to going public and making your fortune. And I wonder whether or not all San Diego software companies at the early stage would have that same mindset.
That didn't cross your mind at all, Mark. Did you? Put out, I remember reading something about that, I believe.
Right. In fact, in conjunction, because of what SAIC had done with employee ownership, we found it as a very viable way of attracting engineers, is to start giving away ownership in the company. And it is a very, very difficult psychological hurdle to get over.
Are you okay now?
I'm okay. Actually, it was very difficult to get to that point, but once I started down that path of employee ownership, it's a wonderful feeling to have everyone working together for a common cause, trying to get an IPO and get $20 million into San Diego.
And of course, SAIC is an employee-owned company.
Yeah, it's a powerful force. I mean, the concept is there. Having the stock is very useful, and not having outside investors. I mean, you're in control of your own destiny. And people are very, very concerned about the SAIC stock price because they have very much a large equity investment in it as employee owners.
Well, I think Stellcom and SAIC are unique. You both are employee-owned. Neither of you has raised outside capital, as I understand it. I think most software companies, while they can bootstrap it to some extent and use credit cards to at least get started, at some point most will need to raise outside capital and give up significant chunks of ownership. Connect has certainly recognized that this is an issue, and we do have a new initiative called Connect Invest, and the purpose is to develop new sources of capital for early stage technology companies. And I certainly hope, Jay, that your predecessors will not have as hard a time as raising early stage money as you did, although you've been successful now. You're very good about telling the story of your company.
Yeah, I might add that SAIC now has reached a point where the management has decided that we need to start raising outside capital, and we are beginning to spin off parts of the company for public ownership. Network Solutions has just been announced as an IPO.
Well, we've talked a lot about the structure of the industry. Let's talk about some of the current technology trends. The internet, of course, has revolutionized the software industry. Bill, how has the internet changed the software industry? That's a giant question, but we have to start somewhere.
Well, most software engineers probably spend at least 4 to 6 hours surfing the web now instead of working. I could not have possibly imagined this, and I'm sure everybody else. I constantly feel like I'm just sort of keeping my head above water, trying to keep from drowning now in information. it's wonderful to be able to get to software companies, get to hardware companies, find out information, find bug fixes. I mean, that used to be a tedious process trying to get a piece of software fixed that you had purchased. Now it's simply a matter of pointing your browser to the website and either finding out, A, they found the bug, or telling them they got a new bug. It's just, I think it's wonderful. It's a wonderful force, and I'm looking forward to the natural extension out to wireless devices and other things so we can do this web surfing in our cars or whatever.
Mark, your comments on how the internet has changed the software industry.
Well, what the internet is doing is, sometimes people feel that the internet is the browser, is the email. What the internet, to me, is it's connectivity among all of the computers. And so what that implies is now people can share massive amounts of data. And what's creating is there's a whole new industry now being created, and it's this web page development, or it's this data distribution. And it's created by wiring all of these or connecting all these computers together. It's created a brand new industry of just data distribution, or web page development, or advertising, or e-commerce, and it's just explosive.
Harvey, how has the internet changed UCSD extended studies and what we're offering?
Oh, of course, we offer a full spectrum of courses on the internet and development of web pages, on Java, HTML, all of that. But I think it's fundamentally also changed the way that a lot of companies are looking at solutions to problems within their companies. And development of intranets is the example of it. It's almost a concept of web think, and people now have a new tool that they're starting to apply to the problems at hand. And I think it's going to change more than just the software industry. I think it'll change the way business is done. I think it already has begun to do that. From some reports that I've read, it will even change issues such as tariffs and the way that nations trade with one another. Because if you have an electronic transaction, that isn't really crossing borders. It is phenomenal. It's also bringing the computer to large masses of people. It used to be that if a company sold 100,000 computers in its first year, that was a big thing. Now you're talking about millions of machines in people's homes all over the country, all over the world. So I think it's changed in scale and in scope the whole industry. And I think the struggle to keep up with that is what everyone here is complaining about, with lack of people, lack of trained people. And that's where, of course, extension comes in, and that's what we do.
Yeah, I guess the fundamental thing that I'm seeing and that interests me so much is this concept of anything that can be digitized. Any object that's not a physical object that can be digitized can be delivered now basically instantaneously anywhere. There's a fundamental thing happening this week. Capitol Records is delivering the first song on the internet, a Duran Duran song. You pay 99 cents, you can download it off the internet. That has fundamental ramifications for people like Blockbuster and Music Plus.
How is the internet, Mark, changing the way you run Stellcom on a daily basis?
I had a voicemail from someone yesterday that I didn't reply to within a few hours. I got in this morning and he emailed me, and the beginning of it was, well, a long time ago, if you got a fax, you'd respond to it really quickly, and then there was voicemail and you'd respond to it really quickly. For us, the internet on the business itself is just this mass form of communication, not only with email, but also with the intranet. And so it's sort of changing the way that your general standard operating procedures of a business are being handled, because the internet is such a powerful tool to run a business, let alone the technology of it.
Jay, what's been the impact of the internet on Right Strategies?
Reduces support costs. I mean, it's a big communications network, so we can publish support information to our customers that they can get to without us having to get on the phone and talk to them. Extended marketing reach. And we wouldn't be able to do business with people in Australia without the internet. We can now. I mean, all over the world, that stuff just happens. So there's been huge impact for what that allows us to do. But in terms of our product delivery, we don't sell it over the net. We distribute it over the net so people can actually try our software without calling us. I mean, reduced costs, increased sales, right? I like to think of things in terms of simple benefits,
So it's been fundamental to the way you operate Right Strategies.
Oh yeah, we probably wouldn't have been able to execute in the way we have without it, you know, especially in the early days, responding to lots of early adopter customers who found us out. I mean, they literally found us by putting a few keywords into the web, showing up at our website, and boom, you know, we get on the phone and we do some sort of deal. So, yeah, it's been key. It'll be increasingly important.
We recruit off of it, we sell off of it. Our engineers wouldn't even consider coming to work for us unless they had it at their desktop. It's the only way for them to develop software now.
Mm-hmm. Well, Bill, recently there's been a lot of press about something called Java, which is not coffee, but it's a new computer programming language developed by Sun Microsystems. Could you tell us what is Java?
A nightmare.
It's not coffee, it's a nightmare.
A non-standard nightmare. No. Java is a fun programming language. If you're a programmer, it beats the heck out of COBOL, Fortran, C, C++, whatever. It's a fun language to program in. It runs on everything. Unfortunately, it doesn't run on everything the same, as I'm finding out the hard way. But it could be, I guess, the common language of all computers if things work out properly. Whether that happens or not is not in our hands, but it could be very nice if it did work out that way. It could come down to small devices too. I think that's one of the most exciting things, the concept of Pico Java or Java chips running your phones, your TVs, your microwaves, whatever, everything connected together with Java and being able to communicate. It has a fundamental effect on the way people program and what could be done. But again, whether that happens or not is questionable to me at this point.
And in fact, I don't believe it can happen. It'll follow the same path that Unix followed. Unix was intended to be an operating system that would allow programmers to work on one platform, one hardware device, and then go to another one and have their program work. Well, manufacturers said, well, Unix is really nice, just like they're saying Java is really nice, but maybe we could add this little extension to it, which makes our platform much, much more powerful than the next one. And the engineers look at this and they say, well, I can develop my software twice as fast now and I'm going to use it. And what happens is that the concept of having this virtual machine goes away, and it's a natural evolution.
Yeah.
So is Java going to be the great, wonderful operating system or not?
Well, I predict, no.
Okay, we have to.
No, I believe that Java is here to stay. I do not believe that it will live up to its reputation of being the common or the universal language, but it will reside in watches and phones and light switches and in keyboards and in your internet applications. It's here to stay.
Yeah, it's fun to program in. It works great if you write Java applications. If you sit on a Sun platform or a Microsoft platform and program in that environment and write an application there, you can do wonderful things. But if you try to write an applet that runs in Netscape's browsers or Microsoft's browsers or Sun's hot Java browser and try to make them all run the same in those three browsers using 3 different class libraries or whatever, you've got a real problem. The other problem we're having now is that everybody's got their own class libraries, and these nice little 20K or 30K Java applets all of a sudden are sucking down 2 or 3 megabytes worth of class libraries to do the GUIs and other things, and now you no longer have a lightweight application running on the desktop. You're back to a heavyweight application.
Well, we talked about forecasts. I think I'll go out on a limb and say I do not believe that Java will be successful in its current promise of write once, run anywhere for enterprise applications.
This is so sad, Jay.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, well this sets us up nicely for the next question, which is, of course, Java's developed by Sun. Microsoft, from what I read recently, is refusing to buy into Java. Mark, could you talk a little bit about the Microsoft versus Sun rivalry?
Well, the Microsoft versus Sun rivalry is a good rivalry. Microsoft is not going to ignore Java. They're a smart company. Bill Gates is a smart person. He hasn't got here. But those two giant companies will continue to push each other. Just like Netscape and Oracle, they'll all be pushing each other. And what they'll do is they'll continue to create very, very cool technology, very powerful development tools. They're They're not going to go away. One of them might. You know, Apple, it might survive, it might not. But in any event, another company will come and create that pressure to create new products, which creates new jobs. And
well, Bill, I know you're a Macintosh user. And, and you love your Macintosh.
Hide my head in shame here.
I saw it in your office. And Microsoft now owns part of Apple. What's going to happen to Apple?
Oh boy. Yeah, I have a heavy investment in Apple software and Apple hardware, and it's a wonderful machine. Unfortunately, in my opinion, they've been leapfrogged. If you want a stable environment, I run NT Workstation. And most of our corporate clients are basically slowly getting rid of their Macintosh platforms and going towards the Windows desktop. That's happening. And there's nothing that can be done about that. I mean, it's a perfectly usable machine. I guess the question is, what's going to happen to the company? It's unclear. $150 million or whatever the equity investment was is peanuts when you look at Bill Gates threw, what, $1 billion or something at Web TV, or not Web TV, but one of the cable, Comcast. So $150 million is not a whole lot. Of course, it was great welfare for Apple. What he got out of that was very interesting, though. Basically, what the agreement was is, I give you $150 million, and you put my browser on your desktop. Folks up at Netscape are not terribly happy about that, obviously. And it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out in the legal arena with the Federal Trade Commission and other people that are looking at Microsoft.
Well, what we're talking about Sun and Microsoft, Sun is also pushing the network computer, I believe. Mark, what do you think is the future of the network computer?
well, you know, it's interesting. Years and years ago, there was a mainframe computer, and there were dumb terminals. And then the PCs started evolving, and they got more powerful, and everyone had PCs on their desk, and the mainframes are sort of going away, and the terminals now are very smart. Well, then we progressed a little, and then Windows NT came out, a really powerful operating system, and it started getting larger and larger, and now people are going back to, well, maybe we can have a very powerful server, and we can have a network computer, a dumb terminal in a certain sense. Well, that's good, and that'll lower costs, but then, of course, another company is going to come along and say, you know, if I just add a disk to this network computer, I can run even better and cooler applications, and then it'll go away. It's just it's a continual cycle of companies pushing each other into more and more technology.
Well, Jay, wireless technologies are certainly changing the way we live and work. I know I have a pager, a cell phone in my car, a portable cell phone. I've given my 16-year-old daughter a pager so that I can find her whenever I want to, something my parents couldn't do to me. And these technologies are also changing the way we work, and your company is predicated around all of this. How is Right Strategies going to change the way we work?
Wireless technologies. We're just beginning to see the beginning of wireless data. You know, most of the handheld computer systems that we're delivering today are replacing paper-based processes where information turnaround times have taken like 11 to 14 days. And for us to just be able to make that handheld computer communicate over a landline and communicate in real time with their system is sufficient ROI for them to, without having to look at wireless data. Although it will come. There's obviously a whole host of problems that's kept wireless data from moving forward. There's a difference in fundamental differences in the way the stuff works compared to voice. And there's also, it's very difficult to develop a business case for many of these applications. But we'll probably see the first wireless data really start to explode with some of the applications we do in route delivery and retail and healthcare as the infrastructure picks up, and as handheld devices start getting wireless technology integrated with some decent industrial design. To date, most handheld devices have had to have some kind of PCMCIA card with a big, you know, battery thing hanging off an antenna that you wouldn't want to be seen with, you know. And we're just now going to get, like Comdex this year, some devices that have nicely integrated wireless modems. So if they will take off in the broader consumer marketplace, I think that's one of the first things that needs to happen to do it. And certainly our software is being developed to take advantage of all that, and does take advantage of it today.
Jay, who's a typical user of your software? What would they be doing with it?
It's somebody who's carrying around a clipboard, either a home health person, somebody who's doing clinical trials for a pharmaceutical company, a route delivery person for a consumer appliance manufacturer, somebody who goes out and makes sure dirt still is on the ground for the USDA. A lot of jobs that we're not very familiar with, kind of blue collar, data collection, data access, clipboard in the field types of things.
Well, Mark, one issue of interest to people who are in the software industry is what are the most popular platforms today?
Well, of course, the IBM PC, I'm sorry that I've said that, the PC is the most popular platform. In industry or in large business, Unix, whether that be Sun or Hewlett-Packard, is very, very dominant, along with the IBM mainframes. With the Windows NT operating system, that is sort of slowly but surely creeping into the enterprise-wide, the mission-critical type systems. The PC is a very, very powerful platform. As the chips get more powerful and smaller and the power consumption gets smaller and smaller and battery capability will get larger and larger, the concept of a laptop or a palm top will take over.
Harvey, what are we seeing at UCSD in terms of what are the popular platforms? What are the classes that people want to take?
Well, I believe that we're a very good indicator of what's going on in industry because our courses answer the needs of industry and we're very responsive to that. What we're seeing is tremendous increase in interest in all programming languages. We've actually seen an increase in C, C++, as well as Java. Java, of course, people are streaming to it. I think that reflects the development that's going on in the area and the language that people are using. We're also seeing a lot of increase in people in operating systems courses, in particular in the Microsoft MCSE programs. People are flocking to those. As I understand, there's a tremendous need for people with those skills in the workforce. We're also seeing a tremendous interest in database, in SQL, in Oracle courses. Just across the board, I think there's an explosion of need for people with high-tech skills in this area. And part of what we do to help San Diego keep a regional advantage is to provide these lifelong learning opportunities for people so that they're able to shift their careers. If you've been working for a defense company, you've been working in an arcane language that's no longer very marketable for you, you still have those skills as a programmer, and you don't have to waste that. And I think we're the ultimate in what they used to call defense transition, and that's what we do.
Well, before we leave the subject of technology trends, Bill, let's talk about what you think are going to be some of the next killer applications on the internet.
Boy, I'll tell you, that's a hard one. Working email.
Working email.
No, I guess I had an interesting call a week or so ago. Somebody had been surfing the net when they were supposed to be working, and they ran across, I don't know where they ran across, whether it was my homepage or SASC's homepage or something, and I got this call out of the blue from a television studio in London, which, you know, voicemail message from some guy speaking wonderful English, asking me to call him back. And this particular studio is basically doing a series of sort of sci-fi episodes for one of the television stations in Britain. And he was asking, well, the concept is, you know, we're trying to basically mold Bill Gates together with Rupert Murdoch and have this new hacker that comes out of the blue, the new Bill Gates, basically, okay? And this guy is going to invent the killer app on the internet and control the internet. Okay, so he says, well, you know, what's your concept here? Well, I said, I'll call you back.
So they're picking your brain
Right.
for their TV show.
Well, it's interesting because when you start thinking about it, I mean, the one thing that's going to happen on the internet, I think, is obviously electronic commerce. When people begin and buy, sell things in this medium and transact business. I mean, information sites on the web are there. Transaction sites are just coming into being. Show this week up in LA, the Internet Commerce Expo. Everybody's announcing transaction systems for doing commerce on the internet. But the problem there, of course, is that everything is based on encryption technology. I mean, it's basically, you have to figure out a way so that the fellow here and the fellow there get the information, trusted information, and you trust this guy. You have to have some trust relationship. And if you're not physically there, I mean, if you're not shaking his hand, the human-to-human trust relationship, looking him in the eye and figuring out, well, do I trust this guy or not to deliver the goods? How do you do that in cyberspace? And the current way of doing that is through encryption technology. Well, the problem with encryption technology is you can make longer and longer keys, and all it takes is bigger and bigger machines to break those keys, okay? And you just start to project these things out. DEC and Intel have announced this new chipset they're coming out with. It's going to start at 500 megahertz for their PCs and scale up to 4 gigahertz by the year 2000. So, you know, you're
going to get the information faster than you can process.
Well,
in your brain.
it's this constant problem, yeah. I mean, and these machines can crack these codes faster and faster. So there's this constant battle. So I guess my concept is the killer app I would look for would be something that allows you to establish a trust relationship with somebody virtually, remotely, and trust that person as if you were looking him in the face and shaking his hand.
Okay, well now everybody in the room knows that this is what they should go out and create a company around. Okay. Well, now that we've talked about technology trends, let's bring it down to the level of the individual and talk about what skills and knowledge you need to succeed in the software industry. Harvey, what do you think is the vision of the new software engineer?
The new software engineer. I think I have what might be a bit of an iconoclastic view of the software engineer. I think what I see happening is that they want people to get a base from their undergraduate education and some exposure to software engineering principles. Then they want what I would call an apprenticeship period in industry, working with companies, working on real projects, dealing with manufacturing practices from their companies or software development practices. And then they want them to come back and then get some more formal education in software engineering. I liken it to almost the guild process of many years ago. And it's getting back to what I would call the roots of engineering, where you're not just in school, but you actually have this apprenticeship, and then you maybe become a journeyman and have various levels through that. And I almost see that evolving in industry right now. So it's very different. And one of the things that I'd like to pose as a question to people on this panel is, what do you need from us as Extension to help train your people? Where do we fit into this process?
Okay.
Bill, what does SAIC need?
Well, SAIC needs people that can hit the ground running when they come out of school, bottom line. And the reason for that is we, as much as we'd like to, we're not in the guild world anymore. Okay, we're running at Netscape time. Software projects tend to be death marches. There's a book by that title that I just read, by the way. They're basically impossible projects to do with not enough resources in too little time. And that's the way the world goes. I mean, if you know how Netscape works or the way they turn out software now, it's just constant churn, and there's never any time to do things properly anymore in the software world. So that, I think, is important, that someone needs to come out of school and be able to go to work. I mean, SAC would love to do apprenticeships. We do interns in the summer and whatnot, but we can't afford to do that. I mean, we have to charge our clients for these people.
Well, I didn't mean a formal, certainly you hire experienced people before you would hire someone straight out of school. And what that value that people have from being in the real world and working on projects is actually what I'm talking about as a form of apprenticeship.
I understand. SAC traditionally has not hired people out of colleges. We've hired experienced personnel with a high level of experience. But our growth now is such that we have to now start hiring people directly out of school. We're large enough to do that, and we have to do that now. And we've had an effort this year to begin to build relationships with colleges in order to do things. We're recruiting on college campuses now. We've never done that before, really. Okay. So these people have to hit the ground running. The other thing that's important, I think, is that computer science is different now. I mean, you used to come out of computer science curriculum and write compilers or go to work for a computer company, okay? And you had these mainframes with the priests of the mainframes that doled out the green bar copy to the analysts and the financial people and the other people in the company. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. The people in the company are computer literate. They have a PC on their desktop. They do programming. People write Excel macros. They do word programming. They do Visual Basic programming in Word to write their own applications. And almost everybody now programs. So what people have to come out of school with now, I think, is they're not going to work for computer companies. They're coming out and working in all different industries. So they have to have the social skills and the business background, and I think just the general, you know, the Ravel model of sort of neo-Renaissance man to be able to come out and go to work immediately. And that's very important, I think.
I think that you bring a good point. It is not necessarily the technology. It is not the bits and bytes. It's not understanding the way electricity flows. It's more the work ethic, the interpersonal skills, the willingness to work, to hit the ground running. The education is very important, but as you pointed out earlier, the conversion, as you are a defense conversion assistant organization, UCSD Connect does that. Anyone with the good work ethic, with the good interpersonal skills, the people who are able to work in a team, those are the ones with some training and some mentoring, of pairing a senior person with a junior person. That's what we're being forced to do. That's what SAIC is being forced to do. In fact, that's what Jay will be forced to do as his company gets larger and larger. From a cost point of view, you'll have to marry the senior with the junior and come out with productivity.
Yeah. That sounds like it's a much more structured or formal environment than the early days of software, when you used to hear about the entrepreneurs skateboarding down the halls of their companies.
That's still done. That doesn't go away. When it comes to software people, for us, I guess it's a little simpler. Well, first of all, you know, software people are a little different in terms of relative productivity. I mean, somebody who's a really good one is probably doing the work of 8 who aren't, and that's different. So when it comes to, you know, the skill set that we're looking for, it's probably, I don't know, 40% real solid understanding of computing fundamentals, and then the rest is just raw talent and ability. Because you know, once you've got those, everything out there, I don't care if it's a database or a programming language or networking protocol. I mean, it's all variations on the same theme.
Yeah.
And they pick it up like that.
SAIC needs people like that, but we also need people that can do things other than programming. They have to interact with the client, understand the business problems of the client, and then be able to create a solution in software.
Well, we're down to just a few minutes left, and I think we have to talk about money. Mark, what can engineers expect to earn in the San Diego market?
I'm not good at speaking to what a junior engineer, because we, like SAIC, we deal more with the senior engineers. But it's a lawyer, it's a doctor-ish career type now. Hardworking, enthusiastic, customer service-oriented engineers who have that good technical background can easily make $80,000 a year after 5 to 7 years of experience. Getting over $100,000 is a very, very doable for the more senior engineers.
And of course, if you're at a lot of the technology companies, you also get stock options, which is another form of compensation.
Absolutely. We like to think that at Stellcom, the most valuable thing you can get is a Stellcom stock option.
Right. And you're employee owned at SAIC, and Jay, I assume all your engineers have equity in right strategies.
Absolutely.
That, by the way, is $100,000 for an 80-hour work week, too.
So $2 an hour.
Yes, in fact, that's a very important thing to note, that you have to work, to be good and to really get to the point where you earn a lot of money, you have to work very hard.
Yeah, it's not 40 hours.
Well, Mark, if we come back to this room in 5 years, what is the San Diego software industry going to look like at that time?
Well, Stellcom Technologies will be 10 times as large. It'll be much larger. I am sure that the national presence of San Diego will be well known, and the Qualcomms will spin off dozens and dozens of companies over the years, creating add-ons to the digital technology, just like happened 10 or so years ago with Linkabit.
Tom, do you have any thoughts on what the industry is going to look like in 5 years in San Diego?
I agree with Mark. The companies not only represented at this table, but the growing software companies that are not here at the table are bringing on board talented, intelligent, and ambitious individuals. And I think that those individuals will foster their own companies. And in my mind, if they can foster the interests of the venture capitalists or other capital sources, I see an unlimited future for the software industry in San Diego.
And Jay, where will Right Strategies be?
Oh, it'll be big, Barbara.
And SAIC will be even bigger.
Yeah, I think so. SAIC hopefully will still be here too, and I think it's critical to think about that, and that's because that a lot of our clients are not in San Diego. Our people travel a lot to go visit clients, and it's very important that we start bringing some of that client base to San Diego.
Well, I'd like to thank you all for joining us tonight. This has been a terrific discussion, both for the audience here and the audience at home. That's it for this edition of the Connect Show. We'll see you next month. I'm Barbara Bree. Thank you, and good night.